That's right. And here to discuss Ebola and policy measures is Stephen Bucci, director of the Douglas and Sarah Allison Center for Foreign and National Security Policy at the Heritage Foundation. And Stephen, thanks so much for being with us and welcome to America's Forum.
Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, public health experts of all stripes have criticized the CDC for not putting all of the hospital workers who had contact with Mr. Duncan under more intensive monitoring. Now that there are reports, of course, that an employee from Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital who may have had contact with Duncan's lab samples left the United States aboard a cruise ship. What's your response to that?
Well, that last one, if that's true, that's a major glitch in the system, as was the allowing this other nurse to fly when they did. They really, people need to take this as seriously as possible. This is a horrendous disease, and there have been some flaws in the protocols, obviously.
There's an obvious question here. Apparently, the nurse who went on this cruise ship or the lab worker who went on this cruise ship, whatever job they may have, they were not aware of these travel restrictions before going on the ship. That, again, signals a big issue here, the CDC not communicating with everyone who could have possibly, not a big enough dragnet, I guess, is the best word.
Well, remember, the CDC has to communicate with the hospitals. The hospitals are supposed to then pass it on to all of their employees. But obviously, not trying to put blame anywhere, but the message was missed, and that's a problem. So we need to review the procedures, review the system, and get the word out to everyone and get everyone who might need it the training they need so we do it right from here on out.
And here's actually Mr. Frieden talking about the measures currently being used. Let's take a listen.
Our fundamental mission is to protect Americans. Right now, we're able to track everyone who comes in.
Well, so Stephen, there we see Dr. Frieden there talking about this. We're not trying to necessarily cast blame, but we do need to know who is responsible. And if they can't track these specific nurses or lab workers who are in a much more controlled environment, how can we trust the CDC to track all these different travelers?
Well, the CDC alone is not doing the tracking. They tap into the rest of law enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security, the local public health people. It's an entire network that does it. Again, everybody needs to keep in mind there's humans involved in this. And again, not using that as an excuse, but, we've never had an Ebola problem here in America before. It's all new. And, they think they have the right protocols. And sometimes there's a lot of that art element of medicine and sometimes a little less of the science. They're getting there. They're making the adjustments. Again, not making excuses. The administration is responsible for protecting us. They have to do it right. They have to do it with the right communications. And thus far, there's been some stumbles.
Yes, they should be on their A game, let's say. Now, do you think the Senate and House should reconvene to institute that travel ban, sir?
The president has the authority to do a travel ban if he wants to do it. The Congress doesn't have to get involved other than to communicate what they're hearing from their constituents. There's plenty of authority to do this already. And just a matter of the president taking the action if he deems it the appropriate thing to do at this time.
All right, I want to move on and talk a little bit about something the Washington Times reported, Mr. Bucci. U.S. taxpayers gave $6 billion in salaries and $25 million in bonuses to an elite corps of healthcare specialists at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention since 2007. We've seen the Ebola response, which has been shaky at best. There's also been some other issues with the CDC in terms of, I think, smallpox or some other miscalculations that they have made recently that made headlines. What do you think about this report now about bonuses being doled out for the CDC?
Well, I have to tell you, even with those things that were left in closets somewhere from the deep, dark past that they finally found, and then the stumbles here, the CDC is as good as it gets, folks. I mean, people need to understand that. Even with the stumbles, this is the best public health organization in the world. It's the best one the world has ever seen. The entire world leans on the American CDC in these events. I'm not saying they're perfect. They're clearly not. We've had the stumbles mentioned already. But please don't jump to conclusions and write these guys off as a bunch of clowns. That is not accurate, and that would really do a disservice to the country and to America.
And definitely they are working on overdrive here. Sir, do you think things will get worse before it gets better?
There will probably be other cases that will come up. I don't see this yet as an outbreak in the sense that they're already having in Africa. But remember, we've got to fight it there, because until we get it under control there, there's a lot of possibilities to have more come here. And as we improve the protocols, improve the screening, improve all of our procedures, we'll get this under control and keep it contained. I'm still optimistic that we can deal with this appropriately and again, not casually, the horrendous disease, and for the victims of it, catastrophic. But I think we have the wherewithal, we have the talent and the abilities and the assets to do this right and to stop this thing in the immediate future.
Well, let's hope they start stopping it very soon here, and we don't have any more cases here on American soil. Stephen Bucci from the Heritage Foundation, thanks so much for being with us here on America's Forum.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll have much more ahead for you after this Newsmax Now update.
President Obama considers appointing an Ebola czar, someone to be the go-to expert on all things Ebola. The president addressed the Ebola crisis from the White House and adds that he's not opposed to travel bans on flights from West Africa. But experts tell him it would be ineffective. Meanwhile, another worker from Texas Health Presbyterian is being isolated aboard a cruise ship. That person went on a cruise before learning about new monitoring rules from the CDC. In other news, Hurricane Gonzalo is set to make landfall in Bermuda sometime today. The Category 4 storm is packing sustained winds of 130 miles per hour. 25 years ago, a 7.1 earthquake rocked the city by the bay during Game 3 of the 1989 World Series. And now the Giants are back for this year's championship. This after they beat the Cardinals last night. What a game. Game 1 gets underway Tuesday in San Francisco. I'm Olga Villaverdi. We'll have another update for you coming up at the top of the hour. We'll see you then.